The First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Hello, everyone. I am meteorologist Lee Southwick, of course, joined with Chief Meteorologist Tim Deegan. Today is a weather impact alert day. Not everyone will see rain, but the thunderstorms that do develop could become severe. And Tim, we now have a severe thunderstorm watch until 9 p.m. for parts of our area.
Yeah, so I think in a way that's positive in that we're not talking about a tornado watch, although the Severe Storms Forecast Office, and just as a reminder, folks, those are the ones that put out these big watches. We'll occasionally talk about county by county or even smaller severe thunderstorm warnings, but this is a watch from the Severe Storms Forecast Office. And so they're primarily looking for gust. Remember, folks, when we say severe weather, we're talking about mostly potential damage for wind damage. So any thunderstorm with lightning, of course, is dangerous, but this is talking about potential wind damage, hail, and then possibly tornadoes. So what this means is we think there's going to be at least the potential for some thunderstorms out there. Could produce some wind gusts of 60 miles per hour or higher. 50 knots, which is 58 miles per hour. That's the threshold for about when we start seeing some damage. Not necessarily what you would call major damage, but at that speed, that threshold, we start to see some limbs coming down. We start to see fences. We start to see maybe some shingles, some signs, and at the very least some flying debris. But it can be worse. So, for instance, although we're not under a tornado watch, the Severe Storms Forecast Office has mentioned that they think there could be some isolated tornadoes. Now, Lee, what I thought was interesting was that they didn't just leave it with isolated tornadoes. They said, we think the isolated tornadoes will max out at 95 miles per hour, which is strong, wind, but that's basically saying an EF0 or EF1, right?
Right.
And then notice the shading, folks. So technically, the Severe Thunderstorm Watch is for every county from Nassau County north and Baker and Columbia County west. We think the major threats or the more significant threat, the highest risk for those of you over southeastern Georgia. Now, we're not saying that there won't be thunderstorms or maybe some gusty winds or some rain for Duval, Union, Bradford, Clay, St. John's, Putnam, or who did I miss, Lee?
Did you say Flagler?
I did not say Flagler. Thank you. So, but that's right about the threshold of where the high enough risk so that we have some watches out there. But I think also, Lee, it paints the overall idea that we think this system will gradually weaken as it heads from the west and northwest to the southeast, right?
Absolutely. And so that's why, we have issued a weather impact alert, but we have been saying over and over again that this is for especially southeast Georgia, mainly southeast Georgia, and then those storms will weaken as they head to the southeast towards places like St. Johns County, Flagler County, Clay, and Putnam. So our weather impact alert today from 5 until 10 p.m. We have been saying it's an evening event, and we will continue to watch for the storms to move in through those evening hours. As for commute times and impacts to commutes, if you're in the Waycross area, that is where we think you will have more of an impact around 5 o'clock there. But all across southeast Georgia and even in northeast Florida, not a bad idea to make sure that you are charging your phone and your tablets right now. You have alerts turned on, you have your sound turned up so you can receive those weather alerts in case a warning is issued. All right, Tim, so I figured we could talk about the timing and look here at this future model. And as mentioned, 5 to 6 o'clock, we're looking at Waycross.
Yeah, Waycross, and then maybe because that extreme northern end might move both really rapidly and stuff jump out in front of it, it could be that even 6 o'clock into Glenn County and the Brunswick area. And if that pops then it could be that just after 7, not only is the threat decreasing in Waycross, but it's already decreasing in the Brunswick area. So it looks like late this afternoon, this evening, it's going to move in quick, and then at least the threat of damaging winds will come to an end. This particular computer model, you can see, folks, why not only are we curious to see how quickly the severe threat weakens, we're wondering if how much of us even get rain, right, Lee? I think that's why, well, in fact, you led off with this, that just because there's a severe thunderstorm watch for many of us doesn't mean we're all going to get rain. Right. In fact, less of us will end up getting rain today than we got yesterday, even though there's more of a severe threat today. There's just more energy out there.
And so that model that we showed you, they've been all over the place. The the high resolution models, the extended forecast, some of them, a lot of them have been showing the rain specifically for southeast Georgia and then falling apart across northeast Florida. But some models have had those storms hold on into northeast Florida and actually reaching places like Duval. And that's why if the thunderstorm does make it to Duval, there is still going to be that risk of severe weather, but it's a very low risk. It's a marginal threat. So everyone there in green, that's a level 1 out of 5 when it comes to your severe weather threat. Wind gust possibility, 40 to 70 mile per hour winds. The possibility of an isolated tornado and hail, as you said, Tim. But again, even the yellow, the slight risk, that's a level 2 out of 5. That lines up with our severe thunderstorm watch as well. And then as you move to the southeast, your threat decreases, as Tim mentioned. And that's why, Tim, would go down to a marginal risk, which is only a level 1 out of 5. So a low risk of severe weather.
Lee, what I'm thinking is, especially if you're Duval County South and you have some athletes or some band members or whatever, but now with the longer days, maybe they're doing an evening outside event, that if it's going to be called, it might be called really more because of potentially lightning as opposed to wind damage. Just still something to keep a close watch on. What we like to do to see if we're beginning to see some verification that the system should weaken. I mean, the computer models indicate that it should. There's a lot going on. I think basically, Lee, probably the main two ingredients that we see happening is that the energy, the winds at the mid and upper levels, that sort of slot is racing away from us to the northeast. And then at the same time, it looks like some drier air is coming in pretty quickly from the west, right? Another thing we like to see is what's happening even just playing with surface winds. And for this event to at least be intensifying, you would expect winds, especially in our coastal areas right now, to be starting to blow out of the southeast. And instead, they're actually still out of the southwest. So that means they're not blowing toward the squall line. If anything, they're sort of bending away. And I was just noticing, Lee, we talked an hour ago, we saw a thunderstorm pop around Flagler County. That indicates that's where the sea breeze is kind of fighting against the heat of the day. But just within the last 30 minutes, I saw a few thunderstorms down in the Villages area, and they're heading east. So that there's almost sort of another prefrontal trough developing that I would think even further support, okay, there's more energy being taken off to the east as opposed to coming up north toward us.
And so that's why, we'll watch it. We'll watch for the potential, but the trend is it's better for places like Duval County and in southeast.
And really to give you
counties.
guys credit, Lee, this weekend, you were talking about this even this weekend, that even though there was going to be a higher risk of severe weather on Monday, that you didn't think the rain event would be nearly as widespread, which I know at home might sound sort of counterintuitive. I think it's a great example of how much forecasting has improved in 40 years. I promise you, back in 1982, if we thought there was going to be severe weather, we would probably be assuming there would be even more rain than we had yesterday. But the data and the models they're just better than they used to. Thank goodness.
I remember on Friday I was trying to talk to the team here. We're talking about issuing a weather impact alert. When do we do that? And I told them the severe weather criteria is there for parts of our area where we would issue it, but we also use a threshold for rain coverage for POPs, and that wasn't there because of how
tough call.
Yeah, so it was a tough call. We ended up, of course, doing it Saturday morning because of our friends and family in southeast Georgia that are under this severe weather risk, and how it can even move into portions of northeast Florida as well. So again, that's why we have the severe thunderstorm watch up for Columbia, Baker, and Nassau counties as well in northeast Florida. So as you mentioned, though, Tim, this is moving through fairly quickly. So kind of looking ahead, those temperatures drop overnight tonight, but later on, 11 midnight, we are drying out across the first coast.
But notice the temperatures don't drop too much. And so maybe I should have said that, Lee, as opposed to talking about mid-level energy and drier air. For those of you that just plain watch the weather map, what you'll see is this front, which produced a lot of damaging weather off to our west and northwest. I'm talking all the way out toward the Mississippi Valley and Ohio Valley. That's been moving toward us pretty quickly, and it had a pretty strong shot of cool air behind it. However, that front is going to pretty much stall over our first coast and head back to the north. So really, another way to say why we think these storms are going to weaken is at the present time, the front is already starting to put on the brakes. And that just means it's losing its upper level support. There's Another word for upper level would be, which Andy likes to use, that is the man behind the curtains. He likes to use the word aloft. So we're talking here, we're saying at about 10 to 15, 20,000 feet, that a lot of that energy is now is racing off to the northeast, even though the front is dropping toward us. And so since that front's, well, look at it. Lee has the numbers up there. No real sign of a cool front tomorrow in those numbers, Lee.
Nope, 87 degrees for our high temperature. So yeah, we're in that season where these fronts can bring us the severe weather risk, but not the beautiful, cooler weather behind it.
I mean, just as a reminder for those who are new, Lee, is that our average low this time of the year, 53, our average high in the 70s, and even though, at least for a while tomorrow, we'll briefly be behind the cool front, those temperatures way above average.
Oh my goodness, 87 for our high tomorrow. I mean,
No,
right
I think
now
both
we're
of
in
us,
the 80s.
I think both of us kind of like that, right?
I was about to say,
Yeah.
I'm not complaining.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not either. I know others are, and
Yeah.
I understand, especially if you don't like the heat or you got to work on the roof. I get it, but I think especially because now that means the ocean temperature is going to start warming up.
Ooh, yes. But I do get it this morning, walking out my door, I was like, oh, the humidity. That of course I want the heat, I don't want the humidity. So it's nice when we have the drop in dew points behind fronts.
That sounds like, that's how my wife sounded this morning at about 5:30, and I said, but honey, your skin now glistens. As we took off for a run, it didn't seem to help one bit.
Ooh, no, I don't. Good try, but I don't think that would work.
No.
So Tuesday, tomorrow, we do have the chance of some showers, as you mentioned, with that front kind of stalling, lifting back north.
I would love to say that absolutely, because we got opening baseball, right, for the Jumbo Shrimp?
Yes, we do.
And so I would love to say absolutely there's not going to be a delay, but still, I think pretty much we think they're going to be playing ball, right?
We do, yes. 20% coverage really for about rain. It's isolated showers tomorrow, so most of us will be dry and good to go. But we can't say with 100% certainty because we will be watching out for that isolated shower out there across our area. But besides that, the weather, the temperature is not too bad. It's going to be a warm evening. First pitch, probably sitting around 80 degrees and then dropping through the 70s. Also, I wanted to bring up coastal because you mentioned the water's getting warmer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you take this one, your coastal forecast.
Well, I tweeted this morning because I did do some research this morning. And the wording I used was we can now round up to 70. So technically, probably if I were to average the buoys, they're at that surf, at least for surf temperature, it's probably at about 69.4 or 69.5. But because I'm ready for that warmer water, so hopefully that's being, there you go. There's a look at it. And Lee, we it looks small here, and it's not big surf, but as you know, we had some pretty strong northeast winds Thursday, came around to easterly Friday and Saturday. So although the winds today were light out of the southwest, we still had that east to southeast wind swell. And so actually the surf was this morning pretty fun, and it was really nice to be out there. I personally went out without a wetsuit. Now, I know some people who were surfing longer had their wetsuits, and I get it. I was not out there particularly long, but
so nice about the time of year.
yes, it is. I agree.
All right, so next one, we'll just quickly go through this again. This was our Jumbo Shrimp opening day forecast. So that is your Tuesday forecast. Wednesday, we're going to start to see
30 degrees Celsius. Holy cow.
So morning still fairly mild in the 60s, afternoon in the 80s. Our winds coming out of the southeast, 7 to 17 miles an hour. Let's move into Thursday. Near record heat, a high of 88 degrees. And in fact, I think what's next, I'm just going to jump ahead here, Tim, because I wanted to show you this.
Give us some facts, Lee.
Okay. So here's our high temperatures over the next 5 days. Tim, you went with 90 on Saturday.
Going
I
officially
love it.
for 90. Pretty darn close Thursday and Friday, so we'll see. We'll see what happens, but yeah.
But our average high of 77
That is up
degrees
there.
this time of year.
So since do we have a little bit of time? Yeah, so it's a little bit of time. I thought maybe the folks would enjoy some, well, go ahead, share this fact.
Oh,
There's the records.
so there's a record. So our high temperature on Friday, 89. Let me start with Thursday. We're a degree away from that record temperature.
Yeah.
Friday, a degree away. Saturday, a degree away. So we'll have near record highs Thursday
We're
and
going to
beyond.
be darn close all of those days.
And last time we were at 90, October 2nd. So it's
Wow.
been a long time, but it could happen this week. So we'll wait and see.
So that's interesting. So let me think. So October 2nd, so that's about 10 days after the autumnal equinox. And we're at just over 10 days past the vernal equinox.
Yeah, I'm Googling right now how many. That's really interesting. That's a good fact.
It sort of just numerically kind of at least works out, at least as far as the whole 90-degree thing. So another inside baseball, folks, is...
180 days.
180 days, okay.
All right, go
That's
ahead.
pretty much half the year, right? Pretty close.
Just about.
Yeah. All I was going to say was that back when Lee was probably not even a spark, we did not have computer models that went out that we had any confidence in, and so what we would use very often, Lee, would be the one model that did go out, the one model that we had that would go out to like 3 or 4 days was just 500 millibars, and so that's how we would attempt to make, instead of just totally old school, some long-range forecast. So whenever we saw 588 millibars over jacks this time of the year, we'd say, man, it's going to be getting close to 90. And sure enough, you look at the models now, which are much, much better. And those models, I think, go from 585 on Wednesday to 590 on Thursday. They peak at 593 millibars or meters on Saturday, then they back off a bit. So if it was 43 years ago, I'd be looking at an even older meteorologist. No, that's not true. I'm just now realizing this. So when I first started, Ray Boylan was the chief.
Okay.
And I love the guy, but I do remember thinking, man, he looks old. And you know what? He was only 63. And I'm 65. Oh, man. Gosh, I must look really old to you guys. But anyhow, if we saw that in the models, we would actually be doubting the models. We'd say, 4 straight days of over 588, that's kind of crazy, but
yeah,
looks like it's going to happen.
Your forecast would have been the same, though, just about, right?
That is the interesting part. We just wouldn't have had nearly the confidence.
Yeah,
in fact, my boss, my chief, who would smoke his pipe all the time, he would, if he thought I wasn't paying attention, we barely saw each other because I was in the morning, he was in the evening. But sometimes he'd come in a little bit early, and if he didn't think I was paying attention to him, I'd hear him tapping his pipe, and that was his way of saying, "Tim, I'm about ready to say something significant. Please listen to my words of wisdom."
But it's interesting too when you're talking about how you wouldn't have trusted it. It's kind of like Moss data to this day too. At the back end, it will start to pull those numbers down.
It's on the edge, right? You wonder.
Yeah, wants to bring it closer to climatology.
Look. Since we have time, I want to compliment you all and share with the weather team that last week I was continuing to want to hold Sunday's weather. So I'm talking about last Tuesday and Wednesday at about 40% coverage. Because I'd seen that type of situation happen so many times with subtropical jet way to the south, and big thunderstorms develop over the central Gulf, and then we get overrunning, but we don't get any rain. But you all were confident with models. You went 60, 70, 80%, and that's what happened. So anyhow, bravo to you. And it just shows that the computer models are getting better, but sometimes that's the hard part about forecasting. It's like, okay, do I trust these models that I know are getting better?
Right, because they're not. They're
not perfect.
Yeah, they're not. And today's system has been really tough because some models bring storms all the way to St. Johns County and others stop it in Brunswick. So that is why we are watching the storms out there right now very closely, just to kind of slowly start wrapping things up. I just think we should end back on the storms, Tim.
Yeah, good reminder.
So our severe thunderstorm watch again goes until 9 o'clock this evening. It's for all of southeast Georgia, and it does include portions of northeast Florida, Columbia, Baker, and Nassau counties. As those storms move to the southeast, these storms are going to start to weaken. So it's not if a thunderstorm, well, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but if a thunderstorm makes it to Duval County, there is the possibility it could become severe, but it's a very low risk. And so that's why they are not included in that severe thunderstorm watch.
Right, but we're right on the edges.
Right.
And for those of you that don't like directions, or they don't like directions, I'll leave it at that, like my wife. So that means the storms are coming at us from the west and northwest, which means as we approach sunset and you look to the west where the sun is setting and you see dark clouds maybe from the setting sun or just north of it, that means they're coming your way. If it's already dark to your east and northeast, it means they're out of here.
Absolutely. All right. So just to go back over how today is a weather impact alert day, and our weather impact alert goes until 10 o'clock this evening for strong to potentially severe thunderstorms. The greatest risk, the highest risk will be in southeast Georgia, as mentioned. So again, to the north and northwest, the farther you live to the north and northwest, the higher your risk of severe weather is. But everyone across not everyone, but most of us across the First Coast, highlighted by the Storm Prediction Center under some sort of risk, which I will show you in just 1 second. But with that said, I think everyone should just stay weather aware today. If you're watching this, you're doing the right thing. You are staying weather aware, but make sure that you're keeping your phones and your tablets charged and that you have your alerts turned on. Make sure you have the First Coast News app. We will send out alerts. The app will send you alerts if there is a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning in your area. Also make sure your sound's on so you can get those alerts as well. And iPhones, a lot of these phones have these automatic weather alerts that's a great tool to have as well, kind of like an Amber Alert system. But Tim, I know this model probably not perfect, but let's just talk through this timing one more time.
Well, you know, as you're showing this, I'm thinking if somebody in the Jacksonville area is thinking about heading up I-95, whereas this portion of the storm for southeast Georgia and northeastern Florida should be weakening. Once you get up to Savannah, Charleston, and then northward on I-95, if you or a loved one is about ready to leave now, you might want to think about that because it's not going to be weakening up there, right? There might even be there will be a higher risk of tornadoes even farther off to the north as well. If you waited a few hours, and it does get you toward dark, but then even as you get up toward Savannah and Charleston and northward, that squall line should be offshore. So just something to think about if you're traveling north. Okay, looks like we got to wrap it up, Lee.
Alrighty. Well, again, we will be here through the evening, keeping a close eye on it for you all. Thanks for joining us.